Right, so time to have a look at our first glance at the Azerite Armour. Now, there's only one piece available, and you have to create a new pre-made character to be able to see it. I can't get any Azerite Armour on any of the characters I already have. So we look here, and it started us off with a breastplate. Now, Azerite Armour fits into the chest, shoulders, and headpieces, but the shoulder and headpieces are already just the normal pieces still, so it's just the chest. Now, I'm on the Paladin first of all. I'm going to show it on a few other classes to show some things as well. First thing to note is at the top that you can start straight away, because your Heart of Azeroth starts at level 1, is you can select one of these traits. Each one seems to be linked to a different spec. So for Holy, for example, there's one that affects Light of the Martyr, which is a Holy Paladin only ability. For this one, Bulwark of the Light, Avenger's Shield affects, a protection only ability. But the weird thing from a Paladin point of view is then it's Avenger's Might. Avenging Wrath gives you Mastery. Well, all of the specs have Avenging Wrath. So this is a little bit weird. If I select one of these two, then I can only get the benefit from this trait while I'm in that spec. But this one, technically, I could get the benefit no matter which spec I'm in. So that one seems a little weird. But then what you have is, again, if you increase the level of your Heart of Azerite, or Heart of Azeroth, sorry, neck, you can get access to other traits. So you start off with a choice of 3, then a choice of 2, and then 1 at the end. Interesting, going straight to the end, it increases the item level by 5. Where have we seen that before? Of course, this is very much like the Netherlight Crucible, except a little bit in reverse. You get the item level boost later on. It could well be that this is the standard pattern for all of them. It's very difficult for us to tell because we only have access to one Azerite piece at the moment, and it's the starting off one. But that could be a possibility that the last one is always the item level boost. Now, these ones you notice are very utility based. They're not really based on throughput. So here we've got, for example, if we damage an enemy and that enemy dies, we get a heal and a speed boost for 6 seconds. The other one is an absorb shield. So very much defensive stroke, utility type thing. Nothing that's really affecting our throughput. These are the ones that affect our throughput, the ones that we have the real choice for, the ones for which we are likely to need to sim to see which is best. So in this particular case, taking damage gives me dodge. Well, that's very defensive, but then I think, but I have a tanking spec, so maybe it's linked to that. We look at this one, healing effects. Give me haste. If I do a heal, it gives me haste. The lower the health of the target, the more haste I get. So again, very much linked to the fact that I have a healing spec on this character. And then this one is a damage ability. So, it's going to increase one of my stats when I deal damage. Presumably based on the one I have the most of. Otherwise, it means it's just a random one. That'd be a bit of a pain in the ass. But again, at the moment, no way of checking this out unless I leveled this character and got my Heart of Azeroth to 4, which is not that quick. So I'd have to spend a bit of time doing that. So that's what I'll be planning on doing in the next week. But that's what it's looking at the moment. So now what we want to do is try it on another character. So here we are in a Warlock that I've newly created. Forget about the talents. So let's look at their Heart of Azeroth. Now, you can see I'd already been on this one, so I'd already sort of selected one there. But again, you've got one for each spec here. It affects a different ability for each spec. And then the same sort of pattern here. But what's interesting is, so again, this bottom one at level 10 is the same thing, increases the item level. These two are also the same. So we get the one that gives us a heal and a speed boost when we kill an enemy that we've damaged. And we also get the absorb shield. And then on this row, the one on the far right is exactly the same, this elemental whirl. So doing damage gives us a chance to increase one of our secondary stats. But then the other ones, so this is just a straight up increases your mastery or leech, and leech I should say, sorry. This one, damage and abilities have a chance to deal a certain amount of physical damage, and it does more against targets below 30%, so sort of has an execute aspect to it there. And when I looked at this first of all, I thought, well, that's odd, that's physical damage, that's a bit weird. And then let's have a look at a mage. So here we are in a mage I created. So again, we're just going to click on the Azerite Armour again. One for each spec here. Something that affects Arcane Blast. Something, well, this is just appeared to be passive. Enhanced Pyrotechnics. grants an additional 19% haste. Well, I haven't even looked at that, sorry. 19 haste, I should say. And another one for Iceland. So, okay. And then down here, same sort of thing. But these ones, I note, are exactly the same as the Warlock. Exactly the same. So now what I'm thinking is, okay, so here's the situation. This is just the starting piece. It doesn't obviously mean that all pieces of Azerite are like this. But it means that each Azerite armor piece has a set number of these traits, or from a set pool, which of course means, as would make sense, we want to farm certain areas for certain pieces to get the traits we want. Because what I'm seeing here is this is exactly the same as all those other starting pieces. These two are exactly the same. And these three are exactly the same as for the Warlock. Remember, not the Paladin, but that's because Warlock has 3 DPS specs. A Mage has 3 DPS specs. So these are obviously the DPS traits attached to this particular Azerite piece. But the only one that's the same as the Paladin is here. But a Paladin only has 1 DPS spec. So now let's have a look at some of the aberrations. Where I thought, well, okay, if what we've actually got here is in this second row, 1 trait for each of your DPS specs, or one of your specs effectively, what happens with the 2 classes that have a differing number of specs? Druids and Demon Hunters. So I'm going to check out a Demon Hunter to begin with. Let's have a look at the Demon Hunter now, because this has only got 2 specs, of course, 1 DPS and 1 tanking. So there's still 3 traits, of course, but only 2 on this first level. We choose 1 that's going to be useful for Havoc and 1 that's going to be useful for Vengeance. But then down here, so let's have a look. So we've got one here that, again, is the tanking one. So it's the same tanking one I had on my Paladin, the dodge, that's actually 3 times. I've got the one on the right-hand side, which is the same for all the ones where there's a DPS spec, the Elemental Whirl. And then I've got this middle one, which is also a DPS one. So it's obviously taken the view here that you're going to get a DPS, 2 DPS rather, and 1 tanking one. So let's have a look at a Druid. These are all exactly the same again. The Druid, I strongly suspect, will be 1 tanking, 1 healing, 1 DPS, and the rest the same. But it'll be interesting up here. I suppose that might mean that there's going to be 4 different ones across here. So now looking at a Druid, what are we going to be presented with? Sure enough, yeah, okay. So 4 along here, 1 for each spec. So in this particular case, we've got 1 that affects Celestial Alignment. So we've got Moonkin there, we've got our Guardian one there, our Mangle increases the healing of the next ability to heal you. Okay, interesting. And Swiftmare, so you know the Feral one is a healing one, a self-healing one. Okay, and the Swiftman there for Resto. And of course, what do we have here? So we have the tanking one here. We have the healing one. It's the same healing one as for the Paladin, and we have the standard DPS one there. These are exactly the same, and that one's that one. So the way it's looking like for this is just, remember, the starting piece of Azerite Armour. Quite how soon we're supposed to get it when it goes live, I don't know. This is obviously just because it's on a pre-made one. Presumably there'll be some quest to get it, just like there will presumably be a quest for us to get our Heart of Azeroth. But it just looks like in this particular case, you are going to get 1 for each spec here. I would think this will also be replicated against all Azerite armor pieces, but that's just pure speculation. The next one down, which seems to be a throughput row, again looks like if you have all roles represented on your class, will be 1 DPS, 1 healing, and 1 tanking or defensive ability. The second row looks like it's non-throughput abilities, which could include self-healing, could include, you know, speed boosts, absorb shields, that sort of thing. Ones that are not necessarily directly tied to your role. And the final one is an item level increase. This could be the pattern for all Azerite armor pieces, or it may just happen to be what it is for this one. We can't really say at this point, but that's all we can infer, I think, at this stage of the game. So I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share for further content. And until next time, or when I catch you on the stream when I'm doing some alpha, I'll see you next time.